Welcome back to More Moss to the People. This is Asa Nilsson. I am your host. Today, I am meeting with one of my Scandinavian sisters. She's Danish, but living in the United States, and her name is Novalee Wilder. Welcome to More Moss to the People, Novalee.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be on. I'm very, very excited.
I am too. I'm so excited. I've been following you I've been stalking you for years, girl. And here you are sitting on my podcast. It just goes to show you never know what's going to happen.
It's like a full circle moment, probably.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It makes me happy. And I thought about it earlier today. I'm like, I'm living the dream, getting to meet cool people like yourself.
Well, you creating a space for it. I think that's like really exciting when people are like, I want to talk to some of the people I've followed for a long time, or people who, I don't know, new conversations with people you followed for a while. Like, I mean, if you have seen previous like podcasts or whatever, I always love when people are like, this is the question I would ask, or like, why are no one asking this, or like,
I want to know
bringing
about
something different to the table. I think that's really cool.
Well, I know that I've been definitely hearing you on a lot of podcasts lately, so you must be doing the rounds, girl. You're getting out and about.
Well, I've been lucky. I think in the beginning when I started out, I was reaching out a lot and trying to get on things and and being very like, please. And now I'm very lucky that people start reaching out and being like, hey, I think you could add something to my space or my podcast or my membership. And
yeah, of course,
it's just a gift, it makes life easier when people invite you instead of you having to knock on doors. But I think it's just a progress. Like I say that every podcast interview is rehearsal for Oprah.
Oh,
so I'm just like, I'm getting excited for each of them.
Good, yes, good, because it's all a practice. And don't forget to take me along the ride with you, because I'd like to be there too.
I will
say hi to our Oprah. So you are in Los Angeles, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you are an author, you are a professional numerologist, and also an actor. You have got a lot of things in your toolbox. So the reason I have been following you for so long is because you are a professional numerologist, and I love numerology. It fascinates me. It interests me. I love numbers. I'm not a good mathematician or anything like that, but I see numbers and I calculate numbers all the time when I'm driving or looking at like addresses, things like that, which we'll get into all that. But I would love it if you would take a minute and tell us who you are in your own words.
Oh, that's a big question. I think I'm, first of all, like a creator. I think that's what drew me to acting and the theater, because I realized growing up that the family I was in, there were a lot of things we didn't say to each other, or that we didn't tell the world about how our family structure was working. And there was a lot of dysfunction and addiction and stuff like that going on. And I could tell that that I didn't feel very safe to express myself or to create or to have a point of view. And so when I found the theater, I think I was very young, maybe 10 years old, when I saw my first Shakespeare play, Taming of the Shrew.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the play and being like, my God, these people are alive and they're actually saying what I can see their body is already feeling.
That's neat.
Which I think is a general thing that many of us walk around and we can tell from each other's bodies and energies, like something is going on, but we don't say it out loud.
Yeah.
And so it drew me to the theater to be able to say out loud that what I was feeling. And be expressive and create things, because an actor creates a performance and they have to come up with all the parts of it. And so I think over time that like bled into other things. I think if you are a creative person, you're not just creative in one direction. It just like spills over. Maybe you have an opinion about like home design or interiors or, like fashion. Like to me, like the creative thing like is in everything, and it's just like connecting the dots. And then later when I was introduced to numerology, I felt like it kind of connected my creativity with my intuition. So I could suddenly put words to some of the things that I was already picking up around people. I found that often when I was acting with whoever I was partnered with, I would pick up a lot about that person, where I would be like, do I put this in the scene? Do I point it out? Like, does anyone want to know this stuff that I'm suddenly feel like I know about my partner that they haven't like volunteered? And when I met numerology and I got some words to put on some of these experiences, I was like, oh, it's my intuition. It's like whatever psychic gift. I am not a huge psychic. But I definitely, through the tool of numerology, can see things and put words to things that seem to be invisible to certain other people. That's also the thing. With anything, with any gift you have, you think it's normal. Right? Like, oh, this, I'm just doing it. I'm just doing it all the time. I'm having these thoughts or these feelings or these inputs or getting these ideas, and everyone's probably like me, and I'm not very special at all.
And we just don't talk about it because we think everybody's doing it.
And it's like one of the things also with numerology, like, oh, okay, yeah, I do see the world differently than you do. And I need to not treat you how I would treat me. Actually, I need to treat you as your own individual person. But we're getting off track. Who am I?
So anyway, you get to dabble.
I'm a creator, and I think over time I've realized that like the only mistake I can make is to limit myself. To think, oh, I can only create in this field. Or, you know, I thought about that with acting, and when I met numerology, I was like, oh my God, like I can't do both. For a long time, I was like, I can't do both. I have to pick one. And then through numerology, I started writing, and I was like, what is this now? Are we now writing? Isn't that different?
What hat do I have on?
I've tried through my 30s to be like, no, you're allowed to be all of it, and none of it takes away. But it does maybe mean that like, if you pick one lane, you do go faster.
I love that. Yes, when you're taking your half out of the middle, like it's driving down the highway.
But I mean, I'm not a one lane kind of person. I have to dabble in multiple areas, and there are more than one lane that interests me.
Yeah, which I love. I think that is the world also was very well served from that, because I mean, even just looking at the burst of color in your screen, I love it. I'm like, look at it, love it. So you found or discovered or were introduced to numerology not early in your life. I mean, it's not something that you were doing when you were a little girl or anything like that. So the I actually have my book right here. This was the book that I was reading in the 90s. And I have, this is like, I have got so many people's numbers in here. And it's funny because when I meet people, I'm like, oh, what's your birthday? And then I go immediately to like,
yes, I try not to be that person.
Oh, I do it all the time. I do it all the time because I'm also a novice. So it fascinates me to just see, that's kind of interesting. And the difference between this book, as I understand it, and how you read numerology, if I am correct, is that this book, she follows the Pythagorean theorem, and you follow the Chaldean or Chaldean? Chaldean. Okay. Can you speak to the differences?
Yeah, I mean, with the two different systems or schools of thought, whatever you want to like assign to them, there's a difference in how far we can trace them back, and there's a difference in how we assign numbers to the letters of the alphabet. So the Pythagorean system thinks that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so forth must correspond directly to A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
All right. Yeah.
So they just took one system, the system of numbers, and overlaid it completely with the system of the alphabet, or the system of letters. So when you deal with that system, it's simpler, I want to say. It's easier for most people to grasp like the initial calculations. It's also like, for example, if you look at a birthday in the Pythagorean system, you just add up all the numbers in that birthday, and you get a life path number. And there are other calculations you can make from that, and they all have kind of spiffy titles like personality and inner desire, and higher self, and like they have these terms. that to me sound good, but are not always so, they don't really explain themselves. Like
Okay.
the description
Yeah.
of that number is a little vague to me.
Okay.
The Chaldean system does not correspond like the number 1 to the letter A in the same way.
Okay.
It actually does correspond to the number 1 to the letter A, but the rest of
That
them,
was a different example. Yeah.
yeah, the
The
rest of
B.
them. So the Chaldean system is built on like older systems. I think we call it the Chaldean system, but that would be calling it like the old German system. You know, the Chaldea was like an area in the Middle East.
No.
There was there was a nation, we had a king, they ruled Babylon for a while, but you know, it's like saying gypsy magic or something. Like, it's not specific to a person or a school or anything like that. It's just like an area or a nation that now doesn't exist anymore. And this system is more complex. The numbers and the letters correspond in different ways. There are certain tools in the Chaldean system, like the numeroscope, which is kind of a chart you can create based on your name and your birthday. And these kind of tools are not in the Pythagorean system. So it's more complex, there are more details, there are more depth, I want to say. And it's harder for like the everyday person to kind of like grasp all the nuances. And where it feels like to me, because I've read a lot of numerology books, that with the Pythagorean system, you could probably grasp almost everything from reading enough books.
Okay.
But where I have studied with Chaldean numerologists, and you couldn't put it in like, it's just too much. It's one of those things where it's just, you kind of have to study it one-on-one with a teacher, because if one teacher should put like all their knowledge in a book, that would probably be like 15 books, because there are just so many elements in it.
So then, I mean, for a lay woman like myself, who just wants to know the basics of numerology, just to kind of like, just to get an understanding of like recognizing my strengths or how I can overcome my weaknesses. I mean, whatever the reasons people would go and want to have their numbers. What are, in your opinion, are the top 3 things that are the most important to know, like in your Chaldean system?
So in the Chaldean system, you should know your base number. In a lot of the older books, they don't even put anything before number. They just say, you should know your number. They don't even call it base number. They just like, you should know your numbers.
Starting
the numbers you should know in the Chaldean system is the day you were born. So just the day. We're going to ignore the month. We're going to ignore the year. We're just going to look at the day. And we're just going to look at the digit sum of that day. So if you're born on a double-digit day, like me, I'm born on the 28th, I have to add the numbers together until I get to a single digit. So 2 + 8 is 10, 1 + 0 is 1. My number, my base number is 1. That's the most important number to know. It's like knowing your sun sign in astrology. Right. And then, the coffee is kicking in.
I need some water.
The second number you should know is the number of the year you were born. And it's the same thing. We're going to do the digit sum. So I was born in 1986. So I say 1 + 9 + 8 + 6 is 24. 2 + 4 is 6. So my second base number, or the second number I should know, is 6. These are the 2 most important ones. Now, your zodiac sign, or like where you're born in the month, also corresponds to a number. So I was born on July 28th. That makes me a Leo. The sun sign of Leo is connected to the number 1. So you can...
Why? How do you know that?
It's just a system. It's just a system. Like each zodiac sign is connected to a number and connected to the same planet, element, day of the week, energy, all of that. So like you could also say like the number 1 is connected to the element of fire, or the planet of this, like, it's not a planet, but the sun. The sun is also connected to the number 1 into Leo. So if I was reading my birthday, the 2 most important numbers would be the 1 and the 6.
Okay.
And then I would say, okay, you got a little extra 1 energy from being a Leo. Like that kind of amplifies that first number. And this often happens when people look at their birthday and they go deeper with numerology. They see that if they look at their astrology chart and they know like their big 3 or 5, that those energies are going to correspond to their numerology, like to the numbers. So for me, the deeper I go into in my astrology chart, and I've had sessions with great astrologers, with the more they talk, the more I'm like, well, this ends up to be like a numerology reading, because I'm like, the things you zoom in on, the thing you're like, I think this is really important in your chart. There's a lot of this fire energy. I'm like, Or they're like, oh, but interestingly, like your moon is in Aries, which is also a fire sign. And I'm like, clearly, like all the systems connect to the kind of like core truth of you. And then it's just up to whoever the reader is to convey the information there.
Well, I think that's interesting, because I was thinking today about our conversation today, and I was like, I know there's attachments between numerology and tarot, and I know that there is with the oracle cards, and the astrology, numerology, tarot cards, and oracle cards. I love all of it. I love all of the systems. I think they're fascinating. And then I started realizing, wait a minute, there's charts for all of this, and there's all like the blueprints. So I'm like, wait, so if we really had all of them together, like they got all into a room, you would have one wicked cool chart and really understand yourself at a completely different level. Is that what you do to help people with their lives, to help them unlock the key to discover themselves?
Yeah, and one of the things I think are important, because sometimes I have people who listen to me and then I can tell they get a little triggered, because they're like, oh, she's going to tell me who I am. I don't know if anyone can tell me who, I can tell like something comes up in them where they're like, oh, I don't like outside authority, or I don't like someone to tell me or limit me in whatever way. And I'm like, I'm just holding up a mirror. I'm not really like, I'm not deciding who you are. The numbers are not boxes that you can never break out of. You're always more than one number. Even if you, for some reason, is like, a 111 or something, like if you have the same number repeatedly, you still have like, you're still unique, you're still you. And it's important with any kind of tool. And that's what I wanted to say when you said, like, if they all got together in one room. This is how I test new systems. I test them by seeing what they say about a certain aspect of my life, and see if it corresponds with the numerology information I have. And of course, if it corresponds with my my lived experience. And they have to overlap, because if it's a true system and it's a good reader, then they're going to say basically the same thing through whatever that reader's perspective is. And sometimes that's also where you can tell the system is good, but the reader might have a block or an issue with this area. And that's what I'm seeing, not the system.
Right.
So also sometimes if you're listening to someone, or if you're having a reading and you feel like, it didn't really,
it's not connecting,
hit, or I don't feel seen, or she didn't, or he didn't speak to like the issue. I think like sometimes readers, I have that too, like sometimes we're not allowed to talk about a certain aspect, or we are working on it ourselves and we can't convey it to the person we're reading.
That makes sense. I mean, we're all humans.
Yeah. I think I didn't answer the question you just asked, so not what it was.
But so they work together, these systems, the astrology and the numerology, and
and I mean, the more you learn, I mean, I was into feng shui last year. I mean, I am into feng shui, and the more I did like a group course, and the more she talked, I was like, damn, it's all numerology. Like the backward map, like the numbers in there, and the areas of the home that correspond to different family members and different areas of your life. Like you can put the numbers on top of everything.
I don't even, I don't know anything about feng shui, but I think it's fascinating and interesting. But let me ask you this. I was just looking at my tarot cards because I wanted to see one of the cards from the major arcana that was, for example, this card came up, the Devil, which is the 15. So if it's a 15 card, so then it's a 6. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting with the tarot. I think it's one of the tools that have been around the longest and have been used and misused and kind of laid on top of other esoteric tools. So I think the roots of the tarot has a lot to do with Jewish faith and conveying rituals and traditions of the Jewish faith, but it's very hidden within the old imagery. But the tarot has been like reborn again and again and again. And people have also started shifting the cards around, changing the order of the cards. So like, yeah, the Devil card is 15. Some sets or like decks of cards might make it number 14 or something. So like, I just want to say, if you have like a tarot card deck at home, just know that like you should double check the traditional meaning of the cards against whatever you have. But the number 15 in numerology is the kind of like unbridled artist or creator. And if you look at like the roots, and creator also means like actor, or the person who speaks to the deeper desire in people.
The 15 does?
Yeah.
The number 15.
Yeah. So I think like sometimes people are like an older meaning of that, like devil, or there's like some energies there where people are like, well, if you are expressing desires and emotions, then you must either be an actor or you must be a whore. Like you must sell your desire or sell your body. There's a lot of layers of understanding in the tarot. But one of the things we can do with the tarot is that we can look at the first 9 cards and we can see a correspondence to the 9 base numbers.
Okay.
So like, if you wanted to, like, I'm a 1 and the first card is the Magician. And there are some elements there for sure that correspond to the energy of the 1. Or if we look at the 9, which is the Hermit, there are definitely some elements, if you were born on a day that adds up to 9, that you're going to have some hermit tendencies at times, or you're going to have to learn that there's very little leadership and direction and vision and gifts to be passed on if you hide in your cave. So sometimes I also feel like some people probably use the tarot kind of like as keywords to talk to people about their numbers and their energies. And when we go beyond the first 9 numbers, when we get into like 10 and up there, some of the descriptors of the cards overlap with the descriptions of name vibrations, which is something we haven't covered yet. But behind every letter, behind every letter in your name is a number, and we add the numbers together to find the name vibration behind that name.
Right.
And the name vibration kind of functions as a filter on your base number. So say you are a 9 and you have a life lesson about leadership and direction. You have to learn about your own temperament, aggression, masculinity, even if you're born in a female body. And then you have a name vibration that is very soft and very gentle and very receptive and very sensitive. And so your anger and leadership gets kind of filtered between this softness. And so you start kind of bending the knee. You start softening your edges. You get softer and angrier, probably, by like kind of molding yourself into what fits with this name vibration. And this is the work I do. So I look at people and I say, okay, this is your base number. These are your numbers. they're unchangeable. It's who you are. It's just like an never ending spiral of learning and expansion. You're here to do this, but then maybe you have some name vibrations that are not supporting that expression. And we change them.
And we change them. So let's talk about changing names, because I do know that there are some people that they hate their names. They're born with a name and they've never even taken into consideration that they could actually change it. Because that's just what, goes against the family, goes against the culture, whatever. And which I think it's interesting. I mean, I happen to love my maiden name. I still have my maiden name. I did not take my husband's name when we got married. But your name, for example, Novalee Wilder, every time I say it, I feel like I'm listening to like Raiders of the Lost Ark, like Novalee Wilder. That is not a very Danish name, if I dare to say. So then you have opted to change yours. Was that through numerology that you chose to do that, or because of acting, or what?
Yes. No, I've never been so interested in like stage names. I don't think that was ever like that interesting to me. But and I will say, like, everyone, I'm a numerologist, I hear it all the time. Everyone has a story about their name. What we've been told, how it was chosen, who we're named after, if we got pet names, if we got bullied, if like, everyone has a story about their name. And my story with my name is that I was christened Eva Christine Leipert, Eva Christine Lubert in Danish. And already, just before I was christened, there was like a mix-up with my name. Apparently my mom, on the way to the church, was like, because at that point they had just decided I was going to be Christine. And on the way to the church, she was like, no, she needs to have like an A name, because the rest of my sisters have names that end in A. So she was like, we need to call her Ava too. And so I was supposed to be Christine Ava. And the priest, for some reason, was like, sounds silly. So
I'll decide for you.
On my papers, he wrote Ava Christine. He changed the sequence of the names. And I never knew about this. Everyone called me Christine up till I was like 8 or 9 years old. And for some reason, I saw my birth certificate. And I saw that my first name was Ava. And I was like, Mom?
What?
There's more than one name. And of course, like any 9-year-old, I was like, I want that instead. Like, I don't want to be called Christine anymore. And I think that's where the kind of like split happened for me, because my family called me Christine, and everyone else I met from that day forward called me Ava.
Okay.
So I had a real split between like my family and my friends and my coworkers and whatever. And some point, just before I think I left for New York, like maybe a year before I left, I had this thing where I was like, I really want to be one person. And so I told my family, hey, I know it's weird, I'm in my late 20s, but could you try to call me Ava instead of calling me Christine? And they had, which all families have, I want to say, even if you change your name with numerology, or if you just change it like I did, families have weird reactions to us putting down boundaries or preferences or whatever. They just do. And their reaction has nothing to do with you, even if they're your family. So most of my family were like, okay, I guess I'll try.
Okay,
and
thanks.
then I went to New York. And so I went to New York, and at this point I had worked through a lot of stuff in my life, and issues and dysfunctions and what have you. And after like 6 months in New York, I was like, I'm in a whole new place. I'm speaking a whole new language. I'm living in a new place. I have new friends. I'm doing a new thing. And I keep repeating these damn old patterns. And so one of my friends had been to a numerologist and changed her name, and a lot of stuff had shifted in her life. And I was like, this is so crazy, but I'm almost willing to do anything. So let me have a session with this numerologist. So I had a session with that numerologist. And it was such an uncomfortable session because she could just see everything,
Mm.
everything underneath the surface, all the stuff I didn't want people to see. I do think she's a 3, she's a base number 3, so she's very direct
Oh.
in her assessments. And it was just such an uncomfortable session, but I also couldn't kind of hide from what she said. Like I could say it's not true, like everything she said was true. It was just like uncomfortable to hear it. And she was like, unfortunately, with the name you have right now, if you want to change your name, you can't keep any of it. You would have to change your first, middle, and last name. We would probably have to give you 4 names in total, just so you know. And I was like, fuck it. Okay,
Do it. Yeah.
let's do it. And so
Why
I
not?
changed my name, you know, with the help of numerology. So I picked 4 names. And since I was in New York, I had only known most of my friends there for like 6 months.
Yeah.
So even though some of them were like, this is weird, they were also like, I mean, you're a new friend. I mean, what am I going to do if you want to be Nova instead of Ava? Like, okay. Yeah. So I changed my name, and that completely changed my life. I mean, that could be a whole separate episode about like all
We'll
the
do that.
things
We'll talk about that next time. So
Yeah,
do you go by Nova or do you go by Novalee?
I go by both. I
Okay.
actually find that where with my old name, Ava, which sounds different in Danish than it does in English. People can't pronounce it how it's supposed to be pronounced.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah. Never had that experience, right? Where people be like, how do you pronounce it? But with my old name, I could tell I got annoyed all the time. I got annoyed all the time about like how people pronounced it, or whatever. And with Novalee, when I changed to that, I was suddenly like, you can do whatever you want with this name. I am fine.
Okay. Isn't that interesting?
Which to me also sound like, I realized like the name wasn't really the problem. The energy behind the name was the problem.
Yeah.
So with Nova, like I have a friend who called me Novita, because he's Italian. I have people sometimes divide Novalee. It's one word. It's one name, Novalee. Some people divide it in 2. I'm like, you do whatever you need to do.
Isn't it funny how, like, what a difference that made for you?
Yeah, I think, I mean, a lot of things happen with name changes, but the right name, or the more supportive name, usually gives you way more grounding and way more protection. Kind of like there's not so many like holes in your armor, or not this sense of like I'm too sensitive or I am not safe. I think the name gave me a sense of safety that I definitely didn't have in my old name.
That's nice, because I mean, if there is a way that we can help ourselves to feel safer, I mean, that's a critical driver for many of us, especially women that feel unsafe out in the world, period. But then also if there's something like this, and this happens to be what you do for your work. I mean, this is something that you offer your clients. You help people name babies. You help people name their houses. I mean, like you go through like
whatever you want to name, books, records.
Oh yeah, that's and like programs. That's so good. So good. So then do you have a quote, spirituality should validate, not alienate. I loved that. I thought that was a really, really nice quote. And I'm like, that's right. That's true. You know, it's like,
well, I also want, I mean, this is with me too. Like I've had bad readings with readers or psychics or mediums, whatever, that made me feel shitty about myself, or made me question the information I got. And I feel like one of the things that I want to do with my work is just like, I just want to hold up the mirror. I want to give you back the power. I want to give you permission to be who you already are. Because I feel like sometimes the same with name, like I don't actually pick the name for people. I pick the vibration, you know, so I just find the vibration that supports who you already are. And then, you know, people get name lists with hundreds, if not thousands of names, and they pick from there. So it ends up being like, it's a very powerful and empowering experience to name yourself.
Right. I was just going to say that, like, to be able to say yourself you know what, I'm 56 years old nearly. I want to be pancake buttercup, if that's what I want to be.
Yeah.
Right, who cares? It doesn't matter. If that's what I want, then that's who I am. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
it's like,
our
I mean,
name is critical for us.
I think when we go from like being a teenager to being a grown-up, there's a lot of decisions to be made, and we start to have to do it all ourselves. We have to cook for ourselves and pay our bills for ourselves, and we can pick out our own outfits. And throughout life, it becomes more and more your job to take care of you.
Yes.
And that should be an empowering experience. And I think, yeah, I mean, naming yourself, I think it's like a rite of passage for some people to really pick out like what name fits me, what do I want to, I mean, that's the thing, like the right name, you will be so happy to say it out loud. You'll be happy to spell it for people,
to write it,
you'll be happy to put it on your mailbox. You'll like, whenever I meet people, like I didn't think of this when I picked my name, Novalee Wilder, but whenever they say, oh, you sound like a writer, I'm like, thank you.
I am.
I
Funny.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like the energy fits. And I think, yeah, I'm just going to say it again. It's a really empowering thing to name yourself and claim a name.
I think it's wonderful to give people their own power. And that for me is very, very beautiful that you have that ability to work with people like that. So when we talked about the base number, the other number, whatever it was called, the other number, the year-born number.
Yeah, the second base number. The
second base number. So people can go out to your website. I'm going to get on the show notes. You're going to have all your information so people can find you. But then if they wanted to, they can go out to your website, put in their email address, and they can get the 9 base numbers, which I'm also going to do some videos this week before we actually go live, so that people can get an understanding, just so I can just name the 9 base numbers so people can get like a general understanding of what they are. But there's a resource on your website that people can go to.
There's a free ebook.
Yeah,
a free ebook where you can learn about the 9 base numbers. And also, if you want to, there's a free online calculator where you can pop in your name and you can see a few short sentences of like about that name vibration.
That's cool. Very cool. I love that.
It is cool.
And it's free and it's nice. That's, for people just to get an understanding of what you do and how they can maybe just see what it is that you offer. And you have a new book coming out, which maybe we're not allowed to talk about it, but that's going to be your second book.
It's just, it's in the, like towards the fall or winter of 2023. So it's a little bit early to share with people. But I would say that like, if you want to read a book about numerology, that's a short read. I did write a little bit of numerology. That's the title of the book. That also teaches you more about the base numbers and the name vibrations, a little bit about the numeroscope, a little bit about like we talked about the tarot, feng shui, whatever, like the other connection points for the esoteric science that numerology is. That's
all on your website too, so people can get out to get that information there. But now that you have so many tools in your toolbox to be able to help people with, what do you see at the end of the day? What is the legacy that you want to live or leave in the world as it pertains to numerology?
Well, first of all, I think what I try to do, because I'm the filter that this information is being filtered through, I want to make it as positive, as accurate, and as empowering as it could possibly be. Because I can also see that like each generation of numerologists leave like kind of their imprint on the information. And some of the thoughts that people have on, for example, gender is something that where if you read a book that was written in like 1910, if you read it today and you read like their ideas about like men and women and the numbers and how they fit and how you are a 9 woman or a 9 man or like whatever, I can just tell that like some of it feels a little black and white,
archaic,
and a little judgmental. And I think that's the never what we're looking for if we
No.
seek out any kind of spiritual tool. We are never looking for judgment. We got
No.
plenty of that in our
Yeah.
homes and our heads and our
Mm.
upbringing at times, or even from society. So I feel
Yeah.
like it's not that I am an expert on queering numerology, but I do think that it's important that if I have a point of view on, like, for example, some of like the gender stereotypes in this spiritual field, that I clear it up. And also, I mean, I founded the numerology school, so I teach numerologists, and I think it's important when I teach some of the very sensitive areas, like things you can see in the numeroscope about sexual preferences or gender identity, that we never speak about people as being wrong, or that, for example, that a name change could make you straight. Which I think there are actually some numerologists that like think that way. And
That a name change could make you straight?
yeah, or clear up certain issues. I think there are certain things that spirituality can do. And I think the good thing about something like gender being examined very aggressively in the public mind right now is that we can have some of those conversations, and I can have them with my students too. And I can say, you do whatever you think is right, but you do need to take into account that maybe there are more gender expressions than what you grew up with.
Then you understand.
Yeah. And to just, I mean, that's the thing. If I don't understand it, I mean, I feel like I can only really judge what I do understand. If I really understand what a thing is, then I can decide if it's good or bad. But if I don't understand it, or it's not my lived experience, then I should be careful about touching it or putting a label on it, or maybe making people feel other. Like I'm going to tie this up. But one of my experiences when I had a numerology reading was that this person looked at my numeroscope and they said, "Oh, I think you have really bad sex."
Oh,
and I was like,
thank you.
That's a really weird thing to say, because I've definitely had bad sex, but I've also definitely had good sex. So, this is a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
And later when I learned about numerology, I was like, oh, I understand, I think, what you were trying to say in this situation. I think I understand that the person was saying, you have a hard time feeling safe with the opposite sex because of certain things in your numeroscope.
Okay.
This could look like maybe having a hard time, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, I understand what you were saying, but how you said it was really not helpful. Or it didn't feel like I was being
didn't make me
seen.
feel real good.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, if you're like deep into whatever spiritual field, you can see very sensitive and deep things about people, things in their subconscious, things in their past, in their family, in their upbringing, about their parents. Like you can see a lot of things, so you need to be gentle and careful and caring about how you convey the information. And not everything needs to be said out loud. That's also, sometimes I look at people, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to tell them exactly what I see in this area, because it might not be helpful to hear that right now, or it might be too negative.
Well, that's good, because if you say that one of your goals or your legacy is to make it about the positive side, I mean, I believe that we have enough negativity and enough negative stuff around us already. If we could be some kind of a light or some kind of a hope or a wish for other people, and that is the movement is all about sharing our hearts and sharing our stories in a way that gets us feeling whole, and to be able to share it with other people about what our gifts are. And like, what are my gifts? What are your gifts? All of our gifts, we can all share each other's gifts. That's what these conversations are about, and that you dare to do this kind of work, because it isn't mainstream. It isn't like everybody understands it. It's not like banking.
It definitely isn't mainstream.
Not that people understand banking either, but I mean, it's you're making a choice, and I am happy that you are making the choice that you are making, because you are helping a lot of people, and that's important. It is an honor to help others.
It is.
Yes. So, and it's also an honor to have you on this episode this week. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I could talk to you. I love it's so interesting. This is an interesting topic. And I would love to have you back one day. And maybe we can talk about one topic, like specifically. We can maybe talk about names or something like that,
Yeah.
which I love it. I think it's wonderful. And I look forward to sharing this with my people and getting your contact information out so people can also start supporting buying your books and maybe your programs or go to your school.
Tell me what you think about it.
Buy the book. All right. But I'll put all that out in your show notes. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing your heart. Thank you for sharing your truth. Thank you for being here. And we will see you the next time you come and visit us.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me and for such great questions. Really.
Oh, thank you. You're a pleasure to have. All right. Take care. See you next time.
You too. Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.